He's a mess. Back when I was representative for Texas Electric, his daddy had a farm over there on Oak Grove Road back before he was even born. And I became real good friends of his dad over there. Mr. Holdridge had that farm. He'd have electric trouble, and he'd call me, and I'd go out there and help him out, and tie a couple of wires together, or help him out with his problem. And I wound up in the long run being a windmill expert out in the country. I'll tell you, these guys, these old farmers, their windmills would go haywire, and they used them for generating little electricity.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah. Yeah,
pump water and generate
pump water and generate electricity.
Yeah, okay.
And both were very necessary for them, but particularly the water.
Electricity, AC, DC.
What?
AC or DC, Les?
AC.
AC. Okay.
Now their current.
We're on. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Les.
Okay, where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Well, we were telling that story about when you were with Texas Electric, but let's back up and you tell your story. And I think primarily what we're looking for, Les, is you were born in 1910, correct?
1918.
1918, okay. Okay, so we're talking 1918 up until when you went in the Army, and then we'll fill in some after the Army.
Okay.
So you were born in Fort Worth, sir?
I was born in Fort Worth. My mother ran away with a produce salesman when she was 13. He was 33. And they ran off to Oklahoma and got married. His name was William Robert Todd, W.R. Todd. Her name was Catherine Gross. And by the time when she was 14, she had me. Before she was 20, she had 3 boys. About the time I was 7, my dad left us. And my mother went some direction. I have no idea where. And my grandfather and my grandmother, who had been letting us live in a barn behind their house, because, like I say, it was in the Depression days, and my dad and mother didn't have any money. So we'd been living in his barn that had been a grocery store previously. And whenever my parents left, then Grandma and Grandpa took us into the house there at 2900 May Street, and that's where we grew up. And if we hadn't had them, there's no telling how we'd have turned out, but we all turned out very well. When I was about 11 or 12 years old, I got a job. That was around 1930. I got a job at a drugstore on Hemphill Street called Wright's Drugstore. And I got a job delivering on a bicycle. People call in, order something, and I'd go deliver it on my bicycle. That was my first job. After I got out of high school, that was in 1937, there were no jobs anywhere in 1937. I did go out to a steel mill on just off of North Main there, south, the lower end of the viaduct there in North Main in Fort Worth. There's a steel mill, and I applied for a job out there, and they put me to work as a molder. We would go get containers of molten steel and come pour it back in a mold, making different things. And I did that for about 2 days, ran up and down that deal with those hot pots of mold of steel. And then once or twice, some old boy would trip and just throw that steel all over the floor, that molten steel. And it was dangerous. I mean, if you got your feet into it, your shoes melted. And about the third day, there was a big mold of a lid, some kind of a steel lid that went on something in the street, I think, a sewer plant, a sewer line street. I'm not sure where it went. It was too long ago. But anyway, it was a mold, a big flat mold with a top on it, and it was held together while they put the steel in it. It was held together by C-clamps all around the edge of it, holding the two halves together. And about the third day I was there, they were pouring steel into that mold, and that one of those C-clamps popped, broke from the pressure, and went through a guy's head. The guy was standing there with a mold, and this thing popped and went through his head. I walked up to the office and told the man I didn't think I wanted to stay in this business. That job was not for me. He said, well, you haven't been here long enough. And I said, oh, yes, I have. The next day, I got desperate looking for another job, something way to make some money. And I borrowed a pickup, and I don't know who I borrowed it from, but I borrowed a pickup. I went down to the ice plant there on Jennings Street, Diamond Ice Plant, and bought a block of ice, and then took off toward the Mansfield Highway. At that time, you understand, in 1930, 32, 33, along in there, or 37. I got out of high school in 37. That's when I got the ice. That's when I started my ice route, when I got out of high school. But there were no refrigerators then. Everybody had ice boxes, and they had a card they'd stick in the window. That on one side it had 25, the other side had 50, the other side had 75, and over here 100. And however much ice they wanted that day, they put that card in the window with that number on top. And everywhere I'd see one of those cards in the window, I'd stop and say, you want to change ice, man? I'm really good. I don't spill water on the floor, and I don't slam the ice in the boxes and break things. I'm real good. By the end of that first summer, I had an ice route out the Mansfield Highway that kept me really busy, and I really was doing good. I had, besides all the houses, I picked up a couple of beer joints. One was Ted's Trolley, and one was Jack's Place. And they did use a lot of ice. That beer would melt that ice. I remember one Saturday night, the only odd incident I remember is one Saturday night, me and my girlfriend were up at the Texas Hotel at a dance. And about 10 o'clock, I got a call from the Diamond Ice Plant. Ted's Trolley's got about 100 people out there buying beer, and he's run out of ice. Well, me and the girlfriend left the dance, went and got my truck, got some ice, went out to the Diamond Ice Plant, got some ice, went out to Ted's Trolley and iced him down. And since it was too late to go back to the hotel, we just stayed there and danced the rest of the night. But that was one of the only odd incident really that I can remember about that ice deal. After that, after about 2 years of that, still in the Depression, my uncle got me a job. He had a little bit of influence in Fort Worth. He was an insurance man and a prominent insurance man in Fort Worth. And he got me a job in a parking garage behind City Hall, parking cars. I worked 12 hours a day, Monday through Saturday, and a half a day Sunday, and made $12.50. Those weren't the good old days at all.
That was more than you made delivering ice less?
No, I made a little bit more delivering ice than I did on that, but I didn't have near as much. I didn't have a truck to take care of. I didn't have the hours on the ice route were kind of weird and not very steady, dependable. And my business depended on the weather, whether it was cool or hot. And the parking lot job was just a little bit more stable, a little bit more steady. While I was working at the parking garage, I bought my second car. My first car I bought when I was peddling ice. A guy at a service station had an old 1928 Oakland, had wooden spokes, and he had bailed some kid out that was about to have a baby and give him some money, and he was trying to get rid of this car, and he said, I'll sell it to you for $20. And I told him, I said, I didn't have $20, but he said, well, you can pay it out. And I paid him out $1 a week and bought my first car, my Oakland. But when I was parking cars downtown at a parking garage, I bought my second car, and that would cost me $5 a month. It cost a little bit more. But it was a 1932 Chevy with a rumble seat. I was in tall cotton with that little car. About not too long after this, let's tell about the Depression, and the Depression was bad. Those were not the good old days. But anyway, shortly after that, I was getting up there in my 20s, and a buddy of mine didn't have a job. I wasn't real proud of my job paying $12.50 a week. And at that time, the government started this program of enlistment. People trying to get people in go in for a week, get some training, so if a war started, they'd have some trained armed forces. And so, since my job was no good and he didn't have a job, we decided we'd go ahead and get our year over with. And we both joined the Air Force in 1940. That was 1940. And they sent us to San Antonio. And up until my Army days, that was just about my life.
Les, you joined the Army Air Corps, and you were sent to San Antonio for basic training.
True.
What'd you do after that, sir, in your time in the Air Force?
Well, a buddy of mine went with me. We both joined together, went down to San Antonio. And after our basic training, he was sent to Chicago to be an airplane mechanic, and I was sent to Las Vegas to help finish building an airfield that was going to become a aerial gunnery school. And after we finished the aerial gunnery school, after we finished the field, then we started the classes and all the classwork and the training program, and I became an aerial gunnery instructor and stayed there for the rest of the war, except for one little area. Thereafter, about 3 years, there was a bunch of us instructors got kind of teed off at our being stuck there all that time, even though Las Vegas was fun. They finally gave up and took a bunch of us and sent us off to North Carolina and going to let us see the world. They're going to send us off as gunners. We got to North Carolina and the war ended. They sent us right back to Las Vegas.
Let me ask you a question here, Les. I heard that you had a little business on the side when you were in Las Vegas. You in the rental car business?
I did have. I wound up with an old Chevrolet and an old 40 Buick and a 39 Ford, and sometimes I get a little bit low on money. I'd rent one out to either the officers or the non-coms, and they'd go to town, and I'd go out to the gate and hitchhike and get me a ride, and I'd go to town too. But it was pretty good.
You had 3 cars?
Yeah.
Now, Les?
I'd got them. The way I got them.
Where did he get the gasoline?
I'm going there. I'm going there. Okay.
The way I got them is that, I don't know how come I had some money, but anyway, I would lend money to different guys to payday, and at a pretty exorbitant interest rate. And there was one guy that got way behind, and he gave me the Chevrolet. I didn't even buy it. And another guy got behind on how much he owed me, and I gave him just a real cheap price. And for the Buick, And I already had the Ford, so that's how come I got so involved in the car business.
Now, you're running this business during the war. If I remember correctly, things were rationed during the war. You couldn't get tires, couldn't get gasoline.
It was, you could get it, you just get small amounts.
Well, but you had 3 cars, so how did you keep gas in all these cars?
I forgot.
You forgot.
I forgot.
You got a little selective memory here, don't you? Well, okay, we'll let you off the hook
When
on
you
it.
get as old as I am, your memory really does get bad.
Okay. Let me go back and ask you a few things here, Les. Your mother was very young, ran off with your dad, went to Oklahoma. Had their families been in Texas for a period of time? Your ancestors go back in Texas?
I don't know about my dad's family. I don't know anything about my dad's family. My grandma and grandfather raised me. My mother...
Had they been in Texas a long time?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been in Texas a long time. They courted in a horse and buggy. When they got married, they courted in a horse and buggy. That was back in the horse and wagon days.
When you went on the ice, when you went into the ice business, you borrowed a pickup.
Right.
I guess it was a pickup.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of truck was that?
I don't remember for sure. I think it was about a 1935 Dodge, or 34 Dodge.
You had to crank it?
No, it had a starter.
Had a starter. Electric starter. Okay.
Starter. My grandpa and my grandma, when they was raising me, they had a Model T that had to be cranked. But I was too little to have anything to do with that.
Okay. When you were delivering ice, did you do that all yourself, or did you have a helper, Les?
I did it myself.
You ever take one of your brothers with you, maybe?
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
See, I was only about 17 or 18, something like that, when I was delivering that pellet ice. And my brothers were 14 and 15, and back along there. They didn't have any business on an ice truck. I didn't think they did. I really didn't have any business on an ice truck, but I had to do something to make some money.
Okay. As you worked on the ice truck, and you were still kind of watching out for your brothers, were you still living with your grandparents at that time?
Right,
Les?
right.
You lived with them up until you went into service?
I lived with them up until the time I got married married Peggy, my wife, at 39 years old. I stayed there with my grandmother. My grandfather got killed by a train. Let me go back a little bit. My dad got killed in a truck accident down close to Houston when I was about 18. And then my grandfather got killed about 10 years later by a train over by Crowley. He ran across a track in Crowley and a train hit him and killed him. And I stayed there with my grandmother. My brothers, well, they'd gone in the Army too, and pretty soon after that. They were gone. Me and my grandmother lived there by ourselves for many, many years till she passed away.
Your brothers went in the Army. They enlisted?
My brother, Robert Allen, he enlisted and became a glider pilot and wound up in the Normandy invasion, flying a glider into the Normandy invasion during World War II. And he survived. He came back alive. My younger brother, Edward Martin, enlisted out here at Carswell. This was after I had enlisted. They enlisted. They were gone in the Army. When I got back, they were still in the Army. He enlisted out at Carswell, became an airplane mechanic, and got sent to Europe to He sent to the airport in Berlin, Tempelhof, I believe they called it. But anyway, he was a crew chief there at that airport during the war, and our bombers would fly to different areas in Europe, and they'd break down or something happened, and he and his crew would be flown to that area, fix it up, and come with it back to the airport and repair it. But he became a mechanic, and after he got out of the service, he went to work for airplane plant in Grand Prairie. And Robert Allen, when he got out, he became a reporter and advertising man for a newspaper in Lubbock. They're both gone now. They're both passed away.
After you got out of the service, you went to work for Texas Electric Service.
When I got out of the service, I went looking for a job again and found a job reading meters at Texas Electric. And I taught my way from meter reading into the accounting department. I taught my way from the accounting department to outside customer service out in Arlington and the South Side. And from there, I taught my way into the rural department and became the manager for the area south half of the county outside the city limits of Fort Worth. My territory was Aledo, Benbrook, Crowley, Burleson, Airman, and Forest Hill. And I had 7 towns and 5 school districts. I was supposed to keep everything hooked up and running smooth and everybody happy.
Did you have other people who worked for you then, Les? Linemen? Or
Well, the whole company really was at my beck and call. I mean, if I needed something done, I didn't do it. I called the line department or the trouble department or the accounting department, whatever the kind of problem it was. I called whoever could take care of it.
You started reading meters, then you went into the accounting department.
Now, the guy over the meter readers had a son that was over the accounting department, and he told his son that he had this guy that was real good a meter reader, and real dependable, and real honest, and all that kind of stuff, and that he was a good worker. And so his son got me transferred out of meter reading up into the accounting department.
Did you have any experience at accounting? What did you do when you were an accountant?
I worked for people that kept all the books. Whenever people would move, they'd transfer from one set of books into another set of books. They would, if meters were corrected or changed, they changed all the records. We just kept all the records, and they'd tell me what to do, and I'd do it.
You take care of recording people paying their bills or what they owed or stuff like that?
Well, people had been cut off and been moving and whatever. Just any change in the books according to the customer, we took care of it in the accounting department. And they just gave me a job to do, and I'd do it.
You came to Burleson, let's see, when did you come to Burleson? 1957, Les?
1953.
1953. First house you had, I understand you had a little mouse problem?
When I came to Burleson in 1953, I was still single.
Okay.
In 57, I got married to Peggy, and we had Jimmy Shoemaker's brother built our house for us. There was no electric code in town at that time, and so Peggy and I, while the house was being built, we'd come down at night, and on weekends we wired it, because I wanted it wired good, and we wired it good. And then in 57, we moved down here. There was nothing behind us but oat fields full of mice. And as soon as we moved in, they started coming into the garage of the house. And at one time, I had as many as about 35 mouse traps set. And every morning, I'd empty about 27 of them. Peggy almost left me. She almost moved back to Fort Worth. But it was, we finally, as houses got built and as we killed off all the mice, we finally whipped that problem.
Were you the dog catcher for a while?
No.
No, you were not? Okay. Number of things that you've done since you've been in Burleson, Les. Member of the Lions Club?
I've been a member of the Lions Club since 1953. I joined them as soon as I came down here.
1953 till today, you're still a member.
Yeah.
So that's 57 years.
Right. I'm the oldest lion there.
You still roar though.
I'm still the oldest lion, and I still oh.
You bet. What offices have you held in the Lions?
All of them.
All.
President, secretaries.
When were you president, Les?
God. It was in the 60s sometime. I don't remember. It was sometime in the 60s.
Served just one term, I guess, as president?
Yeah. Well, that's not once was enough. I did get to go to one national convention while I was in the president of the Lions Club. I went to a national convention in Florida. That was very, very interesting.
What did you do at the national convention that was interesting? It just
had a good time.
Just had a good time. Okay. Involved in the Boy Scouts in town.
I was a Boy Scout. I was a scoutmaster down at the Methodist Church for a few years with the Boy Scouts.
A few years being 10, 15?
Oh, I'm a 7 or 8, something
7
like
or
that.
8.
Yeah.
Any outstanding scouts that you can remember?
One scout. After later on, I became there was another scoutmaster that had a good troop, and I became his assistant. And at that time, one scout that I remember distinctly and can't forget is our present fire marshal, Stacy Singleton. Mm-hmm. We went on a canoe trip. We went up to Eagle Mountain. Me and the scoutmaster and another pair or two took 5 or 6 canoes. If I remember correctly, we go down to Granbury, got the canoes, went to Eagle Mountain, put them in the upper Eagle Mountain, and came down the Brazos River. Started in on Monday and got back into Granbury Friday evening. We spent about 5 days on the river, camping out on the river. And Stacy Singleton was one of our scouts. And I remember him. He's the only one I really remember.
On this 5-day canoe trip, sleep in tents?
Yeah.
Cooked over an open fire?
Right.
Did you catch some fish and cook them?
We didn't do any fishing.
Didn't do any fishing?
No.
Okay.
And we were just canoeing and camping out. The boys learned quite a bit on that canoe trip. There's some of them would want to take the shortcut where there'd be a bend in the river. Of course, the deepest part of the river would be over there at the outside of the bend. And this other part of here would be kind of shallow. And a bunch of the boys wanted to take a shortcut and get ahead of some of the other ones. They'd take that shortcut across the inside of that bend, and they'd get hung up. They'd have to get out and fight their canoe and get it back over in deep water again. They learned some good lessons.
The original City Charter Commission. The Charter Commission for the City of Burleson.
Home rule charter.
Home Rule Charter. What can you tell us about that?
Jack Taylor and I were the co-chairman, and we had a couple of insurance guys and a couple of real estate guys, and we gathered together about 5 or 6 interested people in around town, and we all got together down there in Jack Taylor's store at different nights, and we would go over. Burleson was just operating under state law, state rules for up until this time, and when we got this home rule convention, we had to come up with our own laws we were going to operate by. Well, I was on that committee mainly because I was working with the city councils in 7 towns, and so I had the end of any question. We might come up with our ideas of a rule that might work or not work. I had 6 other towns I could go to and say, hey, have y'all tried this? Or do you do this? Or do you don't do this? I mean, I had the availability of a bunch of information to help guide us in our decisions. That was the main reason I was on there. I was just more and more of a source of information than anything, because I knew people that were operating under these rules.
And you retired from Texas Electric when, Les?
1983.
83. Retired from Texas Electric in 1983. Now that's 27 years ago?
True.
So what did you do after you retired from Texas Electric?
Well, when I was at Texas Electric, me and a bunch of other guys were already moonlighting at night and then weekends in stagehanding on the shows that came through down at the convention center, and I was a stagehand for Johnny High out Will Rogers for about 10 years. I've got a little memo plaque on the wall that says thank you for 10 years. But anyway, actually after I retired, I went to work for the F&M Bank. George Bransom and Bob Bransom down there at the F&M Bank. And since this had been my territory as the electric provider manager, I knew practically everybody in the country around here, and they knew me. So the bank made me the marketing officer for the bank, and I greeted people and went to the council meetings and school board meetings and invited people to come on down and bank with us. And that was for about 5 years, and then it changed hands. The F&M got bought out by somebody, and I wasn't interested in working for them, so that's when I retired.
On your working as a stagehand, Convention Center and Will Rogers Coliseum, how many years did you do that, Les?
About 25 years. It was about 19 or 20 years after I retired, about 5 years, but I was still at Texas Electric.
You would have seen a lot of pretty good shows in that time, I guess, didn't you?
Yeah, the one I remember the most was the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and I was a stagehand on stage left. During the show, you'd have guys running spotlights and guys attending to the sound, and then you'd have prop men on stage that handled all the stuff that went in and off the stage with the actors, the characters. And I was the prop man on that particular show, and I was in charge of the chicken. You know, that was called the chicken ranch.
Right.
And I was in charge of the chicken, and whenever the gal would come out, get ready to go out on stage, I'd hand her the chicken. And when she'd come off stage, I'd take the chicken back. There was one time when she showed up to go on stage, and I handed her the chicken. I said, "It died a while ago. It's a dead chicken." She said, "Ah!" But anyway, she straightened up and took the chicken and went on. It all worked out all right.
In 25 years, you saw a lot of good shows. You liked Best Little Whorehouse. You ever see Bing Crosby or Bob Hope or any of those big names? Or you got a wall full of autographs?
Saw the Jackson 5 when Michael Jackson was only about 9 years old, or 10 or 11, somewhere along in there. And Beverly Sills was a famous opera singer. She came through there. I got a picture of her. I tried to take a picture during rehearsal. And she says, "Oh, I'm not dressed up. This is not right." So when it came to the opening night, first night of the show, and she came out of her dressing room all dressed up pretty, I held my camera up. She says, "Oh, I never pose for pictures," and I got it. But I don't really have a whole lot of memos from those days.
Did you find those big name stars? Jacksons, Beverly Sills, I mean, they're big names. Would they talk to you, Les? Would they have a conversation? Were they pretty nice folks?
Most of them would. There was one or two that thought they were God's gift to everybody, but most of them were just good, down-to-earth people. Mm-hmm. Biggest part of them. And they'd shoot the bull and ask for advice, and they were very, very nice.
Do you have to belong to a union when you were down there, Les?
Well, you're supposed to. They had a union, but when I started working with them, I was already in my 50s, and they wouldn't let me join because they figured I wanted to work about 3 or 4 years and retire and start drawing their money. So they wouldn't let me be in. They'd let me work, but they wouldn't let me join the union.
Okay. And when you finally left that job as a stagehand, got out of that business, why'd you leave, Les?
I was out on the golf course one day with my lawyer, and I had a heart attack.
Oh.
And my one of the lobes of my heart was dead. The blood flow had got stopped to that part of the heart. It got dead. And by the time they got me to the doctor, he said it was too late. They couldn't do anything. They could done stop the thing, but they couldn't bring that part of my heart back to life again. So I just have to live with it.
But here
But
you
anyway,
are at
that's when I retired from working. Period. I didn't do anything else.
Here you are at 91, still pretty darn active in town, aren't you?
Well, you can't just sit and rock all the time. You got to move a little bit.
Yes, sir.
If you stay still too long, you become immobile. You're stuck. I've got to keep moving.
You bet.
And I was used to being active anyway. While I was working, I'd help start the Chamber of Commerce in Burleson and help start Meals on Wheels. I mean, I was active anyway with a bunch of people, and it was hard to back off and sit in a corner after being there. I just couldn't do it.
The Burleson Civilian Police Academy. Whose idea was that?
I think it was Jerry Stringer's idea. I'm not sure, but he was the one that had the first classes, and no, he didn't start it. I'll take that back. There was a couple of police chiefs back before Jerry got there that started, but in a real small way. Jerry was the one that kind of expanded it and got it into a bigger deal.
What was the academy supposed to do, Les?
They were supposed to get familiar with what the police were up against and in what ways they could observe and report and be of assistance to the police department.
And what did you do with
They were kind of developed as eyes and ears for the police department.
And what did you do with the Civilian Police Academy? You a board member or?
No, there wasn't. I wasn't a board member. I was just one of their regular members. I guess I've been a member longer than anybody.
You got that distinction in a lot of things. And of course you're with the Historical Society in town. How long you been with the Historical?
again, I'm having to guess, but you have to remember, at 91, your memory is really just goes to pieces. I would guess it's about 6 or 7 years, maybe.
Actually, the
5
the
or 7.
Historical Society didn't start until the mid-90s, less so. So if you've been there 6, 7 years, you've been there half of the life of
Yeah.
the committee. And with your 91 years and all those years in Burleson, you've certainly contributed.
I can answer a lot of questions.
Yes, sir. That's a good way to put it. Chamber of Commerce. You were instrumental in starting the Chamber of Commerce here in town?
The Lions Club, the Chamber of Commerce was started out of the Lions Club.
Okay.
In other words, the Lions Club, when they were meeting down at the Old Methodist Church, that's now Hill College, the county, there was, oh Lord, all of the wheels in town were in the Lions Club. It was that time, it was the only municipal club, it was the only club that was in town. So all the wheels were in there, and a fellow that eventually became the county judge was in there. And it's hard to, I'm having a hard time remembering. Anyway, we did start the Chamber of Commerce out of the Lions Club, and the Lions Club members were president and officers and board members. It was all Lions Club.
Were you ever a board member or an officer in the chamber, Les?
I was president of it twice,
Were you? Of the Chamber of Commerce?
1970 and 1976.
Okay, sir.
There again, I was there. I got into those positions because of my job. Texas Electric had an area development department that went out and looked for people to move to this area so they could sell them electricity. Mm-hmm. And I knew all those guys in that department. And so I could get some contacts fed our direction that they might not have gotten if I hadn't been in there.
Texas Electric wanted you in the chamber, and
they wanted me to do anything I could to help all these towns I served to make them grow, because the bigger they got, the more electricity we sold.
Okay.
So they were all for me being involved in anything that I could do to help.
Okay. Let me back up on a couple things here, Les. You were talking, before we started this, or maybe just when we started, but a play that you're in when you lived down there on May Street, and how old were you when you were in this play? You were an actor.
About 12.
You were about 12, and you were an actor.
Yeah.
What part did you play?
Well, as I said, I was the chauffeur for a large family, and my main part as being a chauffeur was the act in the garage where I was rolling dice. I was shooting dice in my off time. That was it.
And you sang a little ditty, Les.
Yeah.
What was that little ditty? Let's hear that.
Oh, Lord. Oh, little cubes of destiny, you can make a king of me, or you can have me wearing rags. When I take you in my hand and throw you on the floor, you can be 11 or you can be a 4. And I've forgotten the rest of it.
After 78 years, that's pretty darn good, though. Let me ask you one more thing, Les. I've got one thing to close with here. I've heard this tale a few times Understand you took your wife to Italy one time. You care to tell us that story?
That's just a joke.
Well, I think I've only known.
I told the story. I didn't take my wife to Italy. I told the story that that this particular church, there was a preacher who got all of his men together on a weekly basis and had meetings. And on one particular meeting, he asked Luigi, he said, "Luigi, get up here and tell these guys how you stayed happily married for 50 years. And Luigi got up there and he said, "Well, I bought her things and I treated her nice. And on our 20th anniversary, I took her to Italy." And the preacher said, "Now that was extraordinarily nice. And not many husbands do that." Said, "By the way, what are you going to do on our 50th anniversary?" Said, "I'm going to go get her."
I think that story's everybody in town has heard that from Les Todd.
That's the story.
Now, that leads me to one more thing. You were married in 1957.
53.
53.
No, 57. You're right. You're
57.
right. 57.
Okay. So that means you've been married 53 years.
Right.
What words of advice would you have to newlyweds on how to have a successful marriage after 53 years?
Well, I would say before they're married, be very careful on who they pick to marry and find out as much about them as possible. Don't wait after you're married to find out things about them that you don't approve of or disagree with. Get acquainted with them before you're married. Don't get married to just on an overnight acquaintance. Know who you're marrying would be my number one advice.
And you, how long did you date your wife, or how long did you know her before you were married, Les?
At that 3 years.
3 years?
We used to go water skiing and dancing. Well, I spent an awful lot of time. I was a little bit leery of getting married in the first place. And I was wanting to be sure I was doing the right thing. And I did.
What'd you do for your 50th anniversary? If Luigi went and got his wife back, what'd you do for your 50th?
I forgot.
You didn't forget the 50th, you just
No, I
don't remember what you
I didn't
did.
forget the 50th. I just forgot what we did.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it was the right thing, whatever you did, Les. Still happily married.
We're very happy. I'm very, very fortunate, very lucky. I really picked good.
Other family members, Les. Your brothers are gone.
I have a half-sister somewhere up in Fort Worth named Karen Stein. But I haven't seen her for 50 years. I mean, I had nothing to do with her. And my brother Martin married a girl named Helga from Germany. She's somewhere over in Hearst, and I don't know anything about her either. I know nothing about my half-sister or my sister-in-law, nothing.
Kids? Children?
They had children. Karen had about 3, and Helga had about 3, but I don't know them either.
What about your children, Les?
My children are Gary and Renee and Barry. Barry was in the service, back a few years ago, and he was up in the mountains in Arizona, and a trail gave way, and he fell about 200 feet, and he passed away. Renee, my daughter, lives across the street from me, and has a son, Spencer, who I raised and I'm sent to college. And Gary is my oldest son. He's now back in Burleson, thank gosh, and he's got a son named Aaron, and he's doing real well. I'm close to all of them.
Good. I don't have anything else, sir. Is there
I don't
maybe
either.
anything that you
I
want
don't.
to add?
I've already said more than I thought I could say.
91 years is a long time. You've got a very interesting story, Les.
Thank you very
Very
much.
fortunate family
Thank you very much.
to have you. Burleson's been very fortunate to have you.
I did have one more small claim to fame when I was on the Child Welfare Board in Cleveland for about 25 years. And I also, these were while I was still working, you know, at Texas Electric. And I was one of the few from Burleson that went to Cleveland and met with a county judge and started the Meals on Wheels program. And like I say, I can't take credit for any of the things I've done. My job was to help all these communities in any way I could. It was my job to do it. So I really can't take any personal credit for being a real good do-gooder just on my own. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh, your picture, Les. Hold that picture up.
Oh.
Look at this good-looking guy here. Hold it up a little bit more. And that was taken what year, Les?
This was taken in about 1945 or 6, somewhere along in there. I just got out of the service.
Fresh out of the service, you bet. Good. Okay.
I wasn't always ugly.